All right, hello everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us for today's Sunday service. Before we begin, like always, I would like to recite together our fundamental sutra. It's called the Dharma of the Right Mind. Today's topic is quite different from our usual topics that we hold at our Sunday services. But today's topic is more from a very macro perspective. We're going to be looking at the theme of God's justice, and also which will be leading to peace. And also, today's Sunday service, if you stay with us for an hour, you'll be able to get the gist and also the destination of what Happy Science, our church, is trying to achieve. So it's a very big perspective thing, but I think it's going to be really fun to talk together about. So we're going to have a little bit of discussion time later on. But so let's get right into it. So Master Ryuho Okawa is the author of this book, which is the base of today's Sunday service. But he states that there's two things that's causing the opposite of justice or terror around the world. And one is religious conflicts, such as a religious conflict between Christianity and Islam. But there's a lot of religious conflicts going on around the world. The second one is a political conflict. Democracy versus totalitarianism. Totalitarianism, simply put, a dictatorship. So what we've been seeing lately on the news is Mr. Kim Jong-un from North Korea. Where I'm from, my country, Japan, we're right next to North Korea, so it's a very, very imminent danger that they're shooting all these missiles out. So it's causing a lot of friction. So these are the two big problems that we're facing on Earth. And our master, Ryuho Okawa, is trying to solve this through spreading the truth, or the correct awareness of how God is seeing this situation on Earth. And that's what we're going to be exploring today together. And I'm just going to go out straight from the conclusion. His way of conclusion to solve all of these problems are these three things. One is to achieve the ultimate solution. The second is to understand the concept of God's management. And lastly, to accept what mercy is. These are the three ways to solve these issues. Now, I'd like to show you one of our TV programs that we're broadcasting on Fox Channel 11. I would like to show you episode 6, which was on the topic of world peace.
Hello, and thank you for accepting our invitation to happiness. Ryuho Okawa is known as a global visionary because of his deep spiritual insight and commitment to guide the world to a brighter future. To accomplish this, he founded Happy Science Group in 1986, which is now a global movement in over 100 countries. His vision and message to the world goes beyond the differences of race and language, empowering people with love. Together, in this 8-part series, we will explore practical ways on how you can be happy and how you can take part in creating happiness as a society. 15 years ago today marks the memorial of September 11th. We give our deepest condolences to all of the families who have lost loved ones. Here we are today, still wondering how we can achieve world peace. What is global justice? Or is it even possible? Nowadays, it seems more than ever we are experiencing chaos around the world. Why is this? We are living in modern times where technology has made the world closer, yet we seem so far apart. We still fight and have wars between countries. What are we fighting for? What is the truth behind these wars? In this episode, we will look into world justice and how it can be accomplished. But first, let's go to the streets of New York and hear what they think is needed for world peace.
I think it works on an individual basis. I think people need to be inspired by things, external kind of influences, and each individual needs to feel like they have to become better as people. But there has to be a universal kind of message influencing people individually to fix their perspectives and want the same thing. Because other people, there are people, groups that have their own agenda and they think that's the best, but we all need to be on the same page.
Many more years of learning. You know, it's not going to happen anytime soon. And many more years of people learning to live together and to learn how to live with each other's differences.
How about you? What do you think is needed for world peace? Let's watch a lecture from Okawa that will give us a deeper insight on global justice.
This lecture is entitled Establishing the Justice of God. Although it is questionable whether anyone on earth is entitled to speak on such a theme, I will try to address this topic the best that I possibly can. In terms of religion, the era of monotheistic religions has continued for 2,000 or 3,000 years now, and there is a tendency to consider monotheism to be pure and non-monotheistic religions to be muddled and defiled. Of course, there is nothing wrong with monotheistic religions that worship a universal God who loves all humankind, but there are also those that worship a specific God who only protects one particular ethnic group. Forcing other ethnic groups to believe in their own God would mean that one particular group could completely dominate others. That would be unreasonable. On this issue, Happy Science teaches that there are different levels of gods and different ethnic gods. In fact, countries have their own ethnic god, whose role is to bring prosperity and wealth to its people and to guide them in the right way. When some particular countries make progress and gain national strength, or in other words, when 4 or 5 powerful countries emerge, cultural friction arises, and competition occurs between ethnic gods, each striving to prove whose teachings would be able to better guide humankind to happiness, as well as bringing prosperity to a country. When this competition exceeds a certain point, a war sometimes breaks out. Looking back in human history, there were many major wars. Those wars were all tragic. There is no such thing as a non-tragic war. They all ended in tragedy, no matter which side people were on. But at the same time, world history shows that through major wars, great nations sometimes rise and sometimes perish. A dominant country would go into decline, and another great power would emerge, thereby resulting in a change of age. We see many such occurrences on a small scale in everyday society. Various companies prosper greatly at times, yet at other times they go under and are replaced by other companies. A similar principle is at work in the rise and fall of countries. While in the case of war, human lives are at stake, which is a serious matter. In the case of competition between companies, people will suffer financial problems by losing jobs. Of course, they could perish if they lose their jobs and can no longer feed themselves, so it is true that financial problems could also lead to death. Looking at the world trend over the past 2,000 or 3,000 years, some countries begin to compete against one another whenever they grow larger and stronger. Then wars would break out. This trend will not disappear so easily. There is also a tendency that the more fervently countries engage in military reduction, the more likely it is for a war to break out as a repercussion. In many cases, military reductions are imposed on weak countries by powerful ones as limiters to prevent opposition. This leads to a buildup of resentment in weak countries, which often resorts to expansionist policies. In that sense, military reductions are not always effective and are extremely difficult matters to deal with. I have made various comments about international politics. In this section, I would like to consider things from the perspectives of today's international politics and religion. From a religious perspective, issues involving Islam cannot be overlooked. The situation is still fluid and will continue to fluctuate, so it is difficult to think about it definitively. But I would like to start with a conclusion. There are supposedly around 1.6 billion Muslims throughout the world. Slightly older references note there were 1 billion or 800 million, so there is no doubt their numbers are increasing. Islam is very widespread among the world's poor, especially in poverty-stricken regions. So in some ways it may be spreading as a substitute for communism and socialism in the past. Thus, as Islam is spreading among the needy, we could say that it is spreading within communities that are struggling to overcome the status quo, but have little hope of improving their condition. On the other hand, Christianity is said to have 2 to 2.2 billion believers, so it is true to say that Islam is drawing close. Islam is now being criticized because some extremists are conducting many dreadful acts of terrorism, but the number is still increasing. Accordingly, there must definitely be aspects of Islam that cannot be understood with Christian values. It is often said that there are no righteous wars. Nevertheless, I believe that unless the attacker has a just cause that is totally understood and supported by the global community, the ones being attacked, the ones defending their own territory, people, and families, are not necessarily evil. This can be said of anything. In the world, there is a rather widespread mindset based on monotheism, which regards other religions as heretical. However, in many cases, this judgment comes from ignorance. People are simply thinking as they were taught in their religion. It would seem that even church leaders are often limited to this level of awareness. In the course of their missionary work, they enthusiastically preach that their beliefs are the only ones that can save people, and they gradually narrow their scope to say that there is no salvation other than through Jesus. Nevertheless, I can well understand why religions tend to move in that direction. Only in recent years has it become possible to think about things on a global scale. Until then, each group in each era made decisions based on its central ideas. So in the past, when transport and communications had not developed, it was nearly impossible for people to think about things on a global scale. Even in Hitler's day, there was still a certain amount of distance between European countries. Now, the time has finally come when we can think about things on a global scale. Therefore, the criteria for justice will change from ethnically focused ones to more universal ones. Whether someone is right will be judged from an international perspective. There are drawbacks to an approach that makes decisions based solely on numbers too. The decision will differ depending on the style taken. For example, whether the population alone is taken into consideration, or whether each and every country is considered to have one vote regardless of size. So a purely numerical approach should not be adopted. After all, we must fully explore the theme, what is right?
Everyone has an understanding of God, but what if the confusion and clarity lied in the fact that there are two concepts of God? One is the universal God, while the other is the ethnic God of different countries. Wars occur when cultural friction and competition among these ethnic gods arise and escalate past a certain point. Now that we can think of things from a global perspective, we need to decide what the criteria of justice is, not from an ethnocentric perspective, but a global perspective. Let's go back to the lecture to hear more about global justice.
Then, what are the criteria of justice that God upholds? The answers can be found in the flow of human history. God does not expect history to be something static and monotonous. People can sometimes become corrupt if they wield power for a long time. Organizations created by people can collapse after exceeding their effective periods, such as 1, 2, or 3 centuries. Some say that a revolution occurs when an organization gets out of step with the times. Thus, God considers innovation a matter of course. If people of the world want to know what God's justice is, I would advise them to read my books, The Laws of the Sun, The Golden Laws, and The Laws of Eternity, and try to understand the philosophy in them. It's not so difficult to read all 3 books. It certainly wouldn't take a lifetime. Reading speed may vary for each person, but I think you can read them in about a week or 10 days. By reading them, you can understand that there are different grades in gods. They range from the universal God that thinks about global justice to gods that think about individual regions, countries, or ethnic groups. You'll also understand that from the books that angels, prophets, and Messiah-like souls are born in certain intervals to create a religion. In other words, there are differences between religions, and each of those religions was founded to bring salvation to the people of its day and region. Despite this, various wars and conflicts arise because certain beliefs are not suited to a different era or to a different region's way of thinking. That is why I want to get rid of wars, conflicts, and misunderstandings that arise from mutual ignorance. I am sure that once people of the world understand the philosophy taught in the Laws of the Sun, the Golden Laws, and the Laws of Eternity, answers to many questions will become clear. Christian countries fought among themselves in World War II, America versus Germany, Germany versus France, Germany versus Britain. They're all Christian countries. As they killed one another, they probably said, "Lord, forgive me. Amen." They all fought in the name of God. So this was unfortunate. Jesus said, "Render, therefore, to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." This could be taken as a basis for the separation of church and state. However, I feel that the separation of church and state has a negative effect. What would have happened if this idea didn't exist, and if they had strictly followed Christ's words in politics? Given that diplomacy is an extension of politics and war is an extension of diplomacy, if they had kept the spirit of Christianity in wartime as well, they wouldn't have been able to engage in such senseless slaughter. However, in reality, politics separated from religion, and that may have worked in a negative way. The roots of Islam and Japanese Shinto are surprisingly similar, and they share some commonalities. They both believe that someone close to God should rule a country. Both have a profusion of war gods. In that sense, they are very similar. I intend to gradually clarify the parts that are common to Japanese Shinto, Islam, and Judaism. I have also confirmed the spiritual truth that the souls of Christian saints are being reincarnated as leaders of various religions in Japan. People can't transcend their nationality so easily, but some souls transcend nationally and move surprisingly freely around the world. Let me explain this in terms of a company. There are different departments, some weak and some strong. In a company, efforts are made to ensure that everything goes smoothly overall by transferring personnel or deciding who to send to which department. The same effort is observed in the religious world. This is a reflection of God's management. What I want to say is this. The biggest desire of God is for many people, or if possible, everyone without exception, to live in happiness. Many scholars who specialize in international politics often use a parable from Christianity to explain the principle of politics. They say that if one sheep out of a flock of 100 goes astray, the principle of politics would be to lead the remaining 99 sheep to safety. whereas the principle of religion would be to search the countryside for the lost sheep. However, what I teach at Happy Science is different. I don't tell people to save the lost sheep at the expense of the other 99. I say that you must also protect the 99 while caring for the lone sheep. Maybe I'm asking for too much, but I tell people to do both. In other words, while we aim for the greatest happiness of the greatest number of people, we have to care for those who have slipped through the safety net too. I'm saying that you shouldn't organize everything around the ladder. The recent Piketty hypothesis from France condemns widening income inequality, and it proposes to level everything in accord with the poor. However, that is nothing but Marxism. It would only make the whole world poor. In a world of poverty, people would no longer be able to help one another. So we should not aim for poverty. It is impossible to distribute wealth unless there are affluents. So there must not be a mistake in your fundamental way of thinking. That is to say, it is wrong to construct an entire theory for the sake of one lost sheep. Religion began to decline at the same time that Marxism appeared. And that is because Marxism includes a part of a fundamental principle of religion. In fact, Marxism politically amplified the idea, right is on the side of the weak. In reality, there can be no government or management without the support of the majority. This is true according to the principle of governance. Therefore, it is necessary to pay attention to both the wealthy and the poor in a well-balanced way. God wishes for the prosperity of each country, as well as a global prosperity that brings harmony to all affiliated countries in the same age. When conflicts, contradictions, or raging wars arise due to different ways of thinking, adjustment will naturally work to bring about reconciliation and produce peace. Someone may rise to oppose war, or an angel of light may appear as a brave politician or soldier to crush those who commit evil. In this way, a principle will work in various ways to stop such conflicts. If there are countries that only think of their own benefit and violate other countries, we must do our best to forcibly resist and stop them. Happy Science will keep voicing transcend hatred and embrace love in order to overcome the conflicts between atheistic, materialistic countries and countries that have faith, and to resolve hatred caused by the differences in religion around the world. Please support our activities.
Wars and conflicts arise from mutual ignorance. To overcome them, Okawa continues writing books of truth. There are various religions, and each of them was founded to bring salvation to the people of its time and region. God wishes to realize the happiness of all people. To achieve this, God sends various kinds of leaders in the religious, political, and educational fields to improve this world. God's management is at work on a worldwide scale, beyond ethnicities and religions, based on God's justice. So by understanding this underlying theme, we can create true justice in the world. To help the world achieve this, Happy Science will keep working with you and with the world, voicing the message, transcend hatred, and embrace love.
So, going over what we learned in that topic is that mutual ignorance is the cause of hatred between religions. Mutual ignorance. So, what do I mean by mutual ignorance between different religions? It's simply put, monotheistic religions say, my God is the only God. Our God is the only right God. And that becomes the source of conflict. Why? Because if your God is the only God, all other religions will look like devils. The God in a different religion would look like a devil. Because if your God is only God, if they're saying that there's another God, that means that that's like to end your worship towards your God. It's like a war going on inside philosophically. And that's what actually happened if you look at history. War did occur between different religions. So it's a mutual ignorance. Ignorance means not knowing the truth. If we know the true design that God has created, we can overcome this visual ignorance. Then what is the true design? What Master states in the Laws of the Sun and on is that this is the ultimate solution. All religions come from the same source with the same purpose. And the purpose is to bring happiness and progress to humanity. It all comes from the same source. Muhammad, Jesus Christ, Shakyamuni Buddha, Socrates, Confucius, all of these great leaders in history has actually come from the same source. But then, if that's the reality, the question that I think would go through our mind is this. If that's the case, why do different religions exist if they came from the same place, right? Because there's a monotheistic religion and there's polytheistic religion. And these three religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and also there's religions that fuses gods and humans, like Buddhism, teaching that every human being can become a Buddha through discipline. And also there's religions that separates gods and humans, saying that God is God and you just must pray towards Him. Why are all these different religions? Why did it come into place then, if they came from the same source? There's three reasons that Master states. One is that the culture was different. Where the saviors or where the messiahs were born, the culture was different because it was a different age and also it was a different place. That's why differences between the teachers comes out. That's the first one. The second one, the saviors who are sent to earth to bring happiness, they actually have different characteristics. Now, if I say this, people might get angry, but because it is the truth, I'll say it. Jesus was not almighty. Shakyamuni Buddha was not almighty. Muhammad was not almighty. They had their own characteristics in the way of trying to save people. And lastly, gods have different ranks. Gods have different ranks. Now let's look at these three things a little more closely. Let's start out with this one. Saviors have different characteristics. What does that mean? When we first read the Dharma of the Right Mind, I think we read this passage. Yellow is the color of law is the teachings. White, the color of love is salvation. Red, the color of justice defeats evil. Purple, the color of order is reverence. Blue, the color of reason is thought. Green, the color of nature is harmony. And lastly, silver, the color of science is progress. So what he's stating in this fundamental sutra is that God has 7 different rays of light. 7 different aspects in God. And when it comes out in forms of a teaching, like Buddhism, it's yellow. When it comes in the form of bringing salvation and love, it's white, which is obviously Jesus Christ. He's the one in command. Red, the color of justice, defeats evil. Who's in command? What Master found out spiritually was, what Master said spiritually is Moses was in charge for this red color because he courageously, freed all of the Jewish people who were slaves back then, and also he performed miracles, and that is justice. He defeated the evil. So it goes on and on and on. And the interesting thing is, progress and the color of science is also a ray of God. This fundamentally brings you a shock to your mind because if you read history, you can see that science and religion separated from each other. And people in the 21st century tend to think that it's more advanced if you believe in science. And religion is something that you do only on your holidays or your weekends, or when someone dies, or when someone is born, or when someone gets married. They separate it. But our teaching is that it actually comes from the same source because science does bring happiness to humankind. I mean, heck, I'm doing this lecture on a TV screen. This is due to science, right? So God does promote science also. So what we're trying to state that every aspect that brings happiness to humankind came from God. But the saviors have different colors. So Jesus did not teach 80,000 different teachings like Shakyamuni Buddha did, but he taught the importance of love. Moses, he was the one with justice, so he came out with the 10 Commandments, what not to do. to lead humanity for happiness, but he didn't think too much of love, right? That transcends different race. So they have different characteristics, and by having this knowledge, you can actually accept the other God. It makes sense. This is what I'm trying to say. The God concept makes sense if you look at it from this perspective. And it sounds very reasonable. It's reasonable that God is like this. Now let's go look at the third one. Gods have different ranks. Now Master Okawa, he's a very spiritual person. And, well, if I say this, it may scare some people off, but I'm just going to say this is truth. He's a spiritual person, meaning he can communicate with the spiritual beings in the spiritual world. And also, he can go out of his physical body and see what the spiritual world is like, firsthand. He can literally see it with his spiritual eyes. And after his spiritual investigation of heaven, what he found out was that heaven is not a flat plane. It's not just happy people and saviors live together. There's actually different ranks in the heavenly world. And the higher you go, that means you have more enlightenment. It means you're more closer to God. Your attributes that you have is more closer to God. And so this is what he means by the different ranks of God. Now, what he states is that this 6th and 7th dimension, 6 and 7, what's below the 6 and below are normal souls who's going through their training here on earth. And from 7 and above are the ones who are born here to bring salvation to humankind. So what's above from 7 and above are what's classified as gods with a small g in a polytheistic religion. But a monotheistic religion, they cross the line of God right here. This is where they draw the line. Meaning, what's above saviors? The Creator. So they believe Allah, or they believe the Heavenly Father is the only one that is God. And they draw the line here, and everything below is humans or angels, and everything above is only God. But what I want you to know, looking at this graph, is that the difference of religion only comes from where to draw the line. All religions are actually talking about the same spiritual world, but they just separate it differently. So we're actually only talking about the same truth. This is another little diagram showing the 9 dimensions. But this 9th dimension is what we were talking about earlier about the 7 rings. These are the beings. There's 10 beings that exist there. And they are the one who guides humanity. That is what is taught in the laws of the sun. And when it comes to 8th dimensional beings, that's the realm of archangels. And what are those types of people when they come to Earth? They are the ones who create history. Their influence of love, their influence of philosophy is so powerful that even after they die, their legacy is remembered because they come out with so much influence to humanity. And then the 7th dimension. These are the beings that are angels. So these are the ones who didn't just live their lives for themselves, but who lived their life to the fullest to help other people. And on and on and on and on and on. And depending on the way you live, it separates which dimension you return to in the heavenly world. So this is the system that Master Ryuho Okawa found out. Not something that he came up with. He literally saw it. He literally saw that this was the truth. And what he found out was that if you understand this truth, you can overcome the differences of religion, which is causing so much pain on the surface of Earth. It's ongoing right now. It's a very sad thing, but even though Christians, they probably won't say it in front of the public, but deep inside their mind, they believe that Islam is a religion of the devil. Islamic people, vice versa. Deep inside, some extremists, they say it out loud, but they believe that the Christian God is the devil. It's wrong. And this animosity is the fundamental source that is actually leading to wars in the world. So that's why we call this little diagram the ultimate solution. This will be the final answer to nip nip it in the bud. It'll be able to cure that animosity that comes out from the differences of religions. And also, I forgot to mention about God's management. So, we human beings are born, this is a better. So this is the spiritual world where we come from. And this three-dimensional world is Earth, right here. And the reason why we go through reincarnation is to go through soul trading. So we're born here, we reap our karma, we do better this lifetime, so we hope that we go to a higher realm. And we repeat this. We repeat this by gaining different experiences and all that. And we try to go higher and higher and higher. Now what he means by God's management is that 6 and below are the people who comes to Earth for their own training. 7 and above come here in accordance with God's will. So they're a part of Team God. Part of Team God. And to say, to understand, they're a part of Team God. And they have a specific purpose when they're born here. Of course, some aspects is for them to learn and to gain experience, but that's 7th dimension. 8th and 9th, literally, they become so egoless and selfless that it's not their purpose of living is not for their soul's progress, but to bring utopia here on Earth. This is the concept of God's management. So if he believes that there needs to be a revolution in Christianity, he would send someone who would start Protestantism. And because Protestantism started, that brought the Industrial Revolution in Europe, which brought a lot of affluence to the world. He believed that Catholic Church was getting old. That's why he sent someone in. He does that to Buddhism. He does that to Islamic nations. He sends these high realm beings in order to create an innovation on this company called Earth. When there's something going wrong, he sends his best to that department to bring it better. This is what we mean by God's management. And by understanding this, like I said earlier, the mutual ignorance changes to a mutual understanding. This is our approach in Happy Science. We're not trying to force you Happy Science way of faith. We're trying to become a bridge of different ethnicities, different religions, to have a common ground to be able to understand each other. That is our approach. We want to create a mutual understanding, not a one only Happy Science religion world. We're trying to say, let's just understand each other by looking at the world through this truth. And understanding is a very important religious word that we teach in Happy Science. Understanding is called mercy in Happy Science. In this book, Master states that mercy is the heart of love that finds love in others, something you have in yourself. It is the belief in the shining diamond others also have as children of God. It is to believe that the path to enlightenment through effort is open to everyone as a child of Buddha. These are his words. Mercy means to understand. Love means to understand. So if I apply this to an Islamic extremist who's about to blow up with normal civilians with dynamites around their stomach, how would this apply? You believe in Allah. The people you're trying to kill believes in that same type of being. And you believe that your way of living is correct, then that means the person who you're trying to kill is also right. This is the fundamental answer. This is mercy. And what Master is saying is that God, you may not see him, but if you truly want to understand what God is, please understand the concept of mercy. Where there is mercy, there is God. Which means where there is God, there is understanding of others. So I really thought this was a powerful message, so I wanted to show it with you. And also in a different book, he's saying that mercy is the key to the next society. So in order for the planet Earth in this 21st century, with 7 billion people on Earth now, in order for all of these different people with different countries, with different religions to be able to develop in harmony, we all must have mercy as a key word. So that was the way to overcome religious conflicts that goes in between monotheism. The other part that I want to talk about today is how are we going to overcome political conflicts that's going on between the Western and the Japanese society versus the North Korean and Chinese regime, which is a very totalitarian nation. How are we going to overcome this? What is his approach? In one word, it starts out by knowing what is right. What is the right political system that'll bring happiness to all humankind? So the political conflict we see right now on Earth is this. There's two big trends. One trend is democracy, which includes liberalism, which includes fundamental human rights, and market economy. The other half of this is dictatorship, totalitarian governments such as socialism, fascism, communism. Right or left doesn't matter. If it's totalitarian, it's evil. If they do not have human rights in their countries, and they have Soviet Union used to, but they tend to have a planned economy where the government tries to control every aspect of the economical situation in the country. So, what is right? What's the right answer that God wants from us? He's stating is that it's the left side. It's the left side. And he's not forcing us this answer. Once again, he found this out because this is the truth. Like I said earlier in the graph right over here, human beings go through reincarnation on this planet Earth so they can gain more experience to become better souls, right? But let's say that you're born into a country like North Korea. Let's say that you're born into a country in China, where they do not allow freedom of speech. What happens? Well, to some degree they do, but they don't have it to a certain extent. What happens? You cannot get the fulfillment that you were born here for. You will not be able to get the fulfillment of learning as much as possible as a children of God. So fundamentally, this political system that humans created goes against the truth. So that's why he's stating that it is wrong to hold this style of political system. And why is this important? This may sound like, oh, it's so obvious, right? I can feel that this is so obvious. But why is this so important? I got a little passionate. It's so important because if you know what's right, you'll be able to make the right decision. Democracy is a system where you ask the people, what do you think is the right decision? Democracy is not a perfect system, no. It's a system that'll help you lead to a better answer. But in order for us to lead to a better answer, we must gain wisdom to know what is right. And if we know this, we can make the decision. Let me give you one little simple example. The North Korean regime, they've been shooting a lot of ballistic missiles. Again, last week Friday, they shot one into the Sea of Japan. A lot of danger is coming upon. But there's different opinions in a democratic nation. Some people say it's because of our stupid president that's provoking it that's leading to this. Some people say time to speak with the North Korean Kim Jong-un is over. He's not going to change whatever he does. So we must end this regime with fire. Not talking, but with fire. We just need to end it, or else it's going to get in. We're not going to be able to control it anymore. There's these different opinions. But in order to be able to give the fundamental right answer to this, once again, we need to know if that country is run on a right way or a wrong way. And if it's run in the wrong way, North Korea says they're creating missiles for the protection of their nation, which is a right that every country has. Every country has a right to protect its nation. That's correct. That's justice. But is that regime worthy of protecting? Becomes the answer. And this perspective is what Master calls global justice. in a global age. Not thinking about your own small country, but we need to start holding hands together with other countries with different cultures and with different political systems. So, from a global perspective, we must bring an answer of a yes or no. And by knowing what's yes and no, you'll know which way politics should head toward. And this is the power of wisdom. So I went really quickly because I didn't have that much time, but we went over 2 ways of overcoming religious and political conflicts. The answer that Happy Science Master Okawa is offering is that for religious conflicts, we must learn mercy. For political conflicts, we must know what wisdom is. And Happy Science, we worship a God called El Cantare. El Cantare. He's a God that includes both mercy and wisdom. He's not the only God. We call him the Supreme God. If I use this, there's all these different dimensions. El Cantare is on the very top. So if you look at this as a company, El Cantare is the CEO. He's the chairman for this Earth's spirit group. So once again, the God that we worship, El Cantare, is not the only God. And it's not one of them gods. He is the supreme God. And it depends on each and every one of us to believe in this fact or not. It's up to you. There's no way that we can force someone to believe in something. But what I can say clearly is that if you really read what's written in these books, you'll feel the grasp of a God that loves human beings, whether they're black, white, or brown, whether they believe in Jesus, whether they believe in Allah, or whether they don't believe. You'll feel the presence of the being that's actually watching over us. So that's why I chose to believe in El Cantare. Lastly, before we get into our group discussion, I would like to show you one video excerpt from Master's newest lecture. It was called Choice for Humankind. It was a 45-minute lecture, but I made a video excerpt of 5 minutes. And for me, I felt the presence of the Supreme God through this lecture. This lecture was given in Japanese, and we usually have English voiceover, but I just wanted to feel the vibration. So we're gonna just have him speaking Japanese with English subtitles.
今これから先2017年以降続いていくのは日米を基調とした自由と民主主義の国家体制が世界のリーダーとしてまだ引っ張り続けるか、それとも北朝鮮や中国のような報道の自由もなく言論の自由もない全体主義国家が世界を恐怖で支配するのを受け止めるか、そういう選択肢が今来ています。今年はその重大な年の一つです。これから来るものに対して皆さんは心を引き締めてください。勇気を持ってください。いろんな意見が飛び交います。迷うことも多いでしょう。反対の意見も多いでしょう。国際世論も沸騰するでしょう。しかし迷ったら最後は私の言葉を聞いてください。これが人類を率いてきた者の言葉だからです。イスラムの自爆テロがあるけれども、イスラム教だってちゃんとコーランの中では神は人を殺すなかれと説いているんですよ。人は殺してはならない、傷つけてもならないんです。そういうふうに教えているんです。しかし戦争はします。それは自分たちの神が本物の神で、それ以外の神は偽物だと思っているからです。 こういう一神教が全てではないということをどうか知っていただきたいんです。キリスト教だって一神教です。だからかつてのスペインやポルトガルも地球を一周して植民地をたくさん作りました。いろんな国の宗教を潰して植民地化していきました。それでも世界を抑えられないでいます。それは神のせいではなく、神の教えを受けてやっている人の認識力の問題だからです。今私はあなた方に言う、キリスト教で言う主なる神、ユダヤ教に言うエローヒム、あるいはイスラム教に言うアッラ、中国の孔子が言う天なる帝、天帝、そして日本神道で言うところの神の中心のさらにその上にいる神はその姿も知られていませんが、雨の都主の神のその上にいる雨の御親神という神、すべては一人なんだということです。だからどの宗教も民族性や文化性の違いによって考え方が違っているかもしれないけれども、元なるものは一つであって、さまざまに魂を磨きながらこの地上で修行している仲間であるということに変わりはないのだということを知っていただきたい。これは地球神エルカンターレの言葉である。二度と忘れることなかれ。あなた方の心に刻んで、人類は一つであり、地上的な争いを乗り越える神なる存在を信じて、その下に自由と民主主義を掲げる世界をこれから続けていくことを選び取るんだ。もう一度言います。北朝鮮に必要なのは信仰です。中国に必要なのも信仰です。インドに必要なのもさまざまな神の上にいる神の存在です。イスラム教国に必要なのはアラーとは誰かを知ることです。私は人類の違いを超えて愛しています。受け入れています。信じることを通して愛とは何かを学んでください。それが私のメッセージです。ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. Very, very powerful statement that was given through Master Ryuho Okawa. Okay, once again, thank you everyone for coming today, and I hope you can stay and have a little chat. Thank you so much.